I'm Brian Howlett, Pro Video Coalition, and I'm joined with three people. And we are talking the Sigma FP, Sigma Classics, Sigma Art lenses. And Graham is going to take over here for a minute and kind of give us a quick introduction of the Sigma FP. We've heard about this camera, but we haven't, coronavirus hit, so not everyone's had a chance to really use this. It's been weird times. Can we describe what the camera, a little bit more about the camera for us?
Yeah, so at a high level, the Sigma FP is a full frame mirrorless that weighs basically 0.46 of a pound. So incredibly small. And actually I have one here that I can show. So this is sort of in like photo mode right here, but this is with the 45 millimeter contemporary kit lens on as well. And so I'm a cinematographer, Timur is a cinematographer. So we care the most about the video features, but obviously it's a very capable stills camera as well. And the things that excite me most about the camera is the ability to shoot cinema, DNG, RAW, full HD, internal to a UHS to memory card. And that's incredibly exciting to get full frame raw shooting capabilities on a tiny little package. I mean, I can shoot that with the camera built like I just showed you guys. So it's also, I'm starting to look at the FP as more of a platform versus a sort of one-off piece of hardware. And let me unpack that just a little bit. So version 2.0 firmware coming this summer is going to support SDK. And what is SDK? It's a software developer's kit. And I've come out of the software world just a little bit on the producing side. And that's exciting to me because if you have access to an SDK, think of it like the programmatic software-based tools to unlock the ability to do a bunch of different things with the Sigma FP, to modify it, to make it, to customize it, to make it more your own thing. And to me, that makes it a platform that third parties can improve, beyond the significant improvements that are coming over the summer that Sigma's doing, and then into the future as well. So, and I mean, it's impossible to talk about the FP without mentioning the price. So it's $17.99 for the body right now, and then $21.49 for the body with the 45 contemporary kit lens. So that's just, an extremely competitive price for the feature set that you're getting. So yeah, that's a Sigma FP at a high level.
What's interesting is that Sigma is taking this, you have the classic lenses, the Art series, the FP. They have kind of, to me, and I might be wrong, I'm wrong a lot, I fail forward in life, but they've seemed to have listened to the original digital SLR group who've turned into digital cinema and really kind of give them the tools they need to stand out in a very busy marketplace. Timur, you've used this lens, this camera a little bit, and you've seen the potential that it could deliver for you in your career. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I used it more in the very, very early stages. I don't know if it was technically a prototype or not, but it was... had a very, very early firmware. So some things didn't work, weren't enabled yet. But it was interesting having, you could almost say it was too small because the version I had was so far in the beginning, there was nothing for it. There was no base plate. There was no rod mounts. There was no L mount adapters. There was no, so it was all like finding a screw and getting a cheese plate off of the top plate of my red came off, and I bolted that to the bottom so I could get it high enough to bolt it to, another thing. And, so it was like this, little bit of a piecemeal thing just to kind of get it all together and get it to a place where it would work. But it was interesting in that it was, going 4K cinema DNG raw in something, it's insanely small. Graham, hold it up. It's ridiculous how small it is to be shooting, 12 and a half stop. Yeah, it's smaller than it's smaller in area than your phone, not in volume, but in area. So we were testing it. I took it out to the desert and Death Valley and Joshua Tree, and was just saying, my very first time using it, I got it that night. I drove out there in the morning with my wife from LA, and turned it on, hit the button, rolled some footage, came back, loaded it, and it's DNG, so it's similar to Blackmagic's old way of shooting raw. So it goes directly into Resolve with no trouble. And the first thing that just sort of took my head off about it was the color. This little thing has this very unique, extraordinary color science. It just doesn't look like anything else, which is kind of what's cool. And it's very specifically FP, like you can pull it out of the lineup. It just has even though they have a little feature that's like an orange and teal mode, but that is kind of how the sensor feels. It's really sensitive to blue, and it's really sensitive to skin tone range, reds and yellows. So you get kind of a natural, like, skin enhancing. You get a little bit of a natural, like, the sky blues. I did some photography with it, like especially like Magic Hour, when the light turns a little bit purple and a little bit gold. It all just kind of comes alive right in those color ranges. So with just doing a little bit of a curve and contrast and all that, I mean, all of a sudden you have this picture that looks graded like straight out of the camera practically. So it was a new way of working. There's no log at the time. There was no log function, so it had like a 709 look built in. So it was sort of like exposing, like in the old school way, where instead of like looking at your waves and your scopes and all that, built in, you attach a monitor and all that so you can see all the things. It feels like almost like, in a weird way, shooting on 16, where you have to like nail your exposure because the dynamic range is good but not exceptional. It's like 12 and a half stops, which is like a good place to be, decent place to be. But it is actually interesting because you don't have infinite dynamic range like you do on every other camera, where you're like, oh, well, I'll just overexpose 2 stops and then we'll pull it back down. And with this, you're actually like, out there with a meter, and you're like, okay, 2.8, and then, and it kind of takes you back to like a little bit of a purist place, like, because it's so just straightforward and simple. It's 24p, 4K, raw. That's it. Go. Like there isn't like a whole plethora of like fanciness in there. Maybe some of the fanciness got activated after I tried it, but and I know that there's a few. Oh, and it does do slow mo and 1080p and stuff like that, which I tried out, which looks pretty good. But it's just a fun little thing, that like you're shooting all this beautiful footage, and then it's like you can, oh wait, snap still photo, and then it's still this big and it's in your hand, and I'm done doing my testing, and I go back home, and then oh, there's my dog, snap. Oh, my dog's doing something funny, record. Like it's sort of like it's this pocket camera that you can take somewhere beautiful, record something gorgeous and incredible, and then the minute you're done using it as a cinema camera, it becomes a pocket. It is your pocket camera also, So it was this really weird way of like, it was everywhere with me. And so you could use it for anything at any time. And that was just kind of like the rough experience I had with it. It was a little bit different than, it's like, going out and seeing something amazing and then being able to capture it in this extraordinary detail and great color and amazing quality and raw and all that stuff. But then it's also like, the little fun snap camera that you have, the one that you would normally disregard or not take seriously, except this one does both. And so that was kind of the thing about it.
What's interesting is if it doesn't come out of the truck, what's the point? Like if you can't bring it with you. And now we're in a time where production is going to probably be very small group of people. Location scouting might be just you and a director and producer.
Yeah.
I don't know. So like having something small that can do video and photos, which a lot of cameras can, but this is very small. It's just you pack in a bag and jump in the car, since we're not flying anymore.
You know this, Brian. You shoot news. I mean, the eyeballs that come with having a large form factor camera, and that's not always the thing that you want in the field, right? So, I shoot documentary, I shoot scripted, and I love this as a doc camera because I'm just hiding in the corner shooting full frame cinema DNG 12-bit raw, and you don't know that. And I like that. I mean, there's something to sort of disappearing into the background when you're trying to capture a true moment, because any documentary filmmaker knows that the moment you introduce cameras into a scenario, you're changing a situation. Hopefully it's 5%, but you don't want to be going more than 5%. You don't want people to be performing for you, especially in a documentary environment.
It's funny you say that because oftentimes I will talk with reporters. We do the interview, and it's fine. It's the active viewing and presence does change people, and then I'll back up. And it's funny, every 10 feet I get like more truth from someone. And that's what you're after as a documentarian or news photographer or storyteller, is that truth, that in the presence of, like in my case, a large camera size of a Arri Alexa is with a top light or whatever, is just so in your face. But I do use a small camera every now and then, and it does help to get stuff in that you need for your story. Plus, I'm droning on, so I'm gonna shut up.
No. Well, actually, if you don't mind, Brian, I want to quickly touch on a few things that Timur said there. So 4K Cinema DNG 12-bit, you'll need to shoot that to an external SSD like the Samsung T5. It still keeps the package very, very small, but I just wanted to make that clear for folks. And then right now there isn't currently a log profile. I think they're working on that now. They don't tell us a whole lot that the engineers are working on in Japan, but everyone knows the need for that, so they're working on that. So right now I shoot in neutral. You can edit, for lack of a better word, that profile in camera too to make it more or less flat depending on which way you're going. So I tend to shoot personally in neutral. And this is the camera that you take out into the field, and you're absolutely right. You don't want to, if it sits on your shelf for 3 months, you should immediately put it on eBay. And this camera has not been sitting on my shelf.
We've talked now that cages and accessories are being built up for it. Could the two of you see someone shooting a film on this? Could you see it as an action camera?
I think you could definitely shoot a film on the FP easily.
And what makes you think that?
Just this, if you're, just going with standard narrative, having the Vista look, just something small and obtrusive, lightweight, easy to work with, for a small indie, with a little bit of lighting and a little bit of light control, no problem. Very easy.
Yeah, and there's been so much accessory support, especially recently over the last 2 or so months. I know that ASIN out of Poland, they're making accessories specifically for the FP. I know Small Rig is making accessories for the FP. I know that Zacuto is making accessories specifically around mirrorless, but it works very well with the FP. So in terms of rigging it out into a smallish, smaller compared to nearly everything, narrative package, you absolutely can do that. You can add the rails, you can add the matte boxes. And Sigma has a lot of great first-party accessories too. I am a huge fan of the director's Viewfinder. I don't understand why viewfinders wiggle on all of the cameras that I use. This one is rock solid because it was made by the people that made the camera, which is so incredibly key. And then, of course, you have the MC21, so you can adapt L mount to EF. I have a ton of EF glass. And then the MC31, which I know, Timur, I think you used no, I'm not going to make that up. But the MC31 adapts L to PL, and I've used that just a little bit, but I like more time with it.
You touched on the accessories. I'm actually using the Zacuto ACT recoil rig, and I used it yesterday as well. And I can attest that is I want to say it's one of the best for small cameras. I'm going to put in a little plug for Zacuto here. That is, I think, one of the best rigs if you guys are looking for something, because the quick release handle and the EVF are just It's really well built. Let's just put it that
Well,
way.
and the key thing with accessories in the FP, me personally, I feel like you need to respect the size of the camera that you're working with and not work to build a gigantic monstrosity off of the back of the FP. I got the FP for the first time and I immediately did what most cinematographers would do. I tried to add, Timur's smiling, every single accessory on the planet to it, right? And all of those work, and that's fine. Yeah, no, you take it away.
Yeah, it's sort of funny. The FP turned into like this vestigial appendage, like snakes that have like little dew claws in the back. It was like all this stuff with lenses and that box and monitors, and then I mean, practically just attached the camera with no support to a lens that was supported.
So it's like it's got everything and then just the camera hanging off the back.
Just the camera hanging off. It wasn't even attached to anything. You just kind of click it on and that was it. But yeah, but going back to what Graham said about the MC31 and the MC21, the L mount. I feel like the L mount is sort of one of its best strengths because it's similar to, I mean, everybody's kind of making their own mirrorless mount now, but nobody's making one that works cross-platform. And the L Mount Alliance, what's kind of so great about it is that you take an FP, you take a Leica. I actually don't know the model name of their camera that's L mount, but there's been one for a while. And then you take like what I'm shooting on now, an S1H, or S1 or S1R. The kind of the full frame Lumix camera. You can take an FP. You can get a Leica 28 mil, put them together, and now you have a little tiny runaround Leica lens. You want to shoot on a very inexpensive but very good lens like the 45 millimeter contemporary. You can keep the price down. You can, like it's actually an interesting mount because it gives you 3 separate companies to choose from as far as glass goes. So you're not. If you want native autofocus and native performance, you're not locked into one company. It's like, I used to have the Sony A7R, and your only options are G Masters or a bunch of adapters to everything else. So it's like Canon lenses, you have the world's fastest, world's best quote unquote autofocus, and you can't use it unless I spend, some of those lenses are like $3,200 for a prime, and it's like, I'm not buying an 85 millimeter G Master to shoot portraits of my, dogs and wife, like it's insane, so with this, you get the option of, you can put on Sigma native, and of course they're going to work great. You can put on Panasonic lenses, you can put on Leica lenses if you want, and and being that it's a mirrorless mount, it adapts to everything. So if you really want to put on Canon, fine. If you want to put on PL, done. You want to put on Nikons, it's there. Mm-hmm. It's like sort of like its hat trick is how flexible it is mount wise, and how much glass you can actually put on it. You can put everything on it,
and that makes it future proof. I mean,
in a sense, yeah. I mean, it's just unbelievable how flexible this. You don't realize how much you can do with it until you actually kind of have it in your hand. And, it's like that beautiful commercial that they made where it's like the camera's locked in place and like all these accessories keep appearing all over it, building from, a kid holding it, taking a picture of, something to, a fully built cinema camera. It's capable of everything. It can actually do everything. And then like Graham was saying with the director's finder, that's actually a really great feature too, because I can throw a Canon 24 to my old Canon broken one that doesn't work anymore, 24 to 105 on it, and if I just want to see what it looks like here at 50 millimeters, just, oh, okay, this is the frame right here, and then you bring in your big camera, or you just, oh, we're going to shoot with the FP here tomorrow. We know, okay, drop a spike of tape and, we'll know for tomorrow that this is the spot, because you can actually see what, you can bring the camera with you as a scouting device that you're actually going to shoot on too. So you get kind of like, you can use it to support other cameras. You can use it as its own camera. You can, you know.
And then in terms of the directing viewfinder mode specifically, that's an entire mode on the camera. And I just shot a feature with DP Madeline Kate Kahn out in Indiana, where we use the director's viewfinder mode very consistently as a communication tool, right, between different department heads. And that's interesting too, because it makes it more than a stills camera, more than a cinema camera. It also makes it an incredibly useful tool on set. And that's actually one of the more exciting for me personally updates coming on the firmware side this summer. You're going to be able to record in director's viewfinder mode, which makes it useful for storyboarding and things like that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. That is one of those things like the communication is paramount. Sometimes you can't really do that with the big camera and the crew around you, because once that ship begins to move, sometimes it's hard to turn the rudder.
Yeah, well, Brian, I unfortunately have to hop off here, but the big takeaway for me with the Sigma FP is the fact that this is the camera that I take with me into the field. I have access to every possible camera body on the market, but this is the one that I find myself constantly bringing everywhere. And I think that's a testament to the modularity of the camera, and then just the size and usefulness in so many different use cases in general. But talk to you guys later. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.